Oh, sorry, I'm now live. I'm the chair of the commissioner, and in a moment I'll ask the other commissioners to introduce themselves, but we've got a little bit of housekeeping to do first. So in terms of health and safety, if the alarm sounds, please make your way to the nearest emergency exit, which is down the stairs next to the lift. Don't use the lift. Our assembly point is the car park at the rear of this building, where we will wait for the all clear to re-enter. Mobility impaired people can wait in the lift lobby as the designated place of safety, and the fire service will be notified. So I repeat, don't use the lift during an emergency evacuation. You should be aware that this meeting is being live streamed and the video will be publicly available on YouTube. And can I ask people, the public that are attending, and officers and media to turn their mobile phones off or turn them onto silent. We do have to speak into our microphones, and if only one of us can talk at a time, it would be helpful, I'm sure. I do want to start by acknowledging the fact that today is the 10th anniversary of the 2011 Christchurch earthquake, and we have two flags that are at half-mast today to honour those who lost their lives. We might take just a few seconds of silence to acknowledge those who lost their lives or lost friends, family, and relations. Thank you. Okay, so as I said, I'm Anne Tolley, Chair of the Commission. I've been in politics for over 30 years in both local and central politics. I live in a hopi, so I'm a Bay of Plenty person, and I'm looking forward to the challenge ahead for the Commission to get on and produce the long-term plan and work over the next 18 to 20 months to restoring local democracy to Tauranga City. I'll now hand over and ask my fellow commissioners to introduce themselves. Shall we start with you, Stephen Selwood?
Good morning, everyone, and it's great to be here. Stephen Selwood. I'm a self-employed company director, but my background is most significantly in the infrastructure sector. And I spent 14 years as Chief Executive of the industry body, Infrastructure New Zealand, and much of that was around best practice, identifying best practice in infrastructure delivery for the country, looking at international experience as well as comparing that with what we do here in New Zealand and identifying opportunities for innovation and making sure there's a very strong connection between infrastructure, city development, regional development, because it is the physical platform on which we enjoy so many benefits, including community benefits, and that's really what I'm here for, to bring that knowledge and expertise. I do think that the growth of Tauranga as a city is a tremendous story positively, but also we have some challenges, don't we, about how we deliver our transportation and our water and wider infrastructure, as well as our community infrastructure. So as a Commission, I think there's a tremendous opportunity before us to find the best way forward. But that has to be done very much in communication and in partnership with not only the community of the city, and we're very keen to make sure that we are hearing what the community have to say, but also we have to make some big decisions in a relatively short time, and we want to make sure that community involvement in that process is as high as it possibly can. And then wider beyond the community, our role as the city for the wider Bay of Plenty and working in partnership with the other districts to make sure that the Bay of Plenty prospers into the region. So that's certainly the mission that I know we collectively as a group aspire to achieve, and I look forward to working with you all. Thank you.
Morena tātou, tuatahi rā ka tuku atu rā ka mihi ki a koe rā kālau, nā i whakatuwhirehia tēnei o tō tātou nei hoi. Nō reira tēnā koe, tēnā tātou katoa. I just want to acknowledge Carlo for opening our our hui this morning with a karakia. Kia ora everybody, my name is Shad Rolliston, and as Anne has indicated, one of the sitting commissioners here. I am local, so my connections here through whakapapa are to the 3 local iwi. Born and raised here, spent some time away, but been back in Tauranga for about 15 years now. And my background is in resource planning and policy, and for the last 10 years worked as a consultant planner locally and across the country. And my area of speciality, I suppose, is looking after relationship management, particularly between iwi hapu Māori communities and local authorities, but also some work with central government as well. Looking forward to the challenge ahead, and just reiterating the comments that Stephen's made, we do have a challenge ahead of us, but the Commission's up for the task. We are conscious of making decisions, but also taking the community with us on this journey. So nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.
Kia ora, I'm Bill Wasley. I've lived in Tauranga since 1985, and in previous lives I had worked for Tauranga County and arrived here in 1989 as Director of Planning and Environment for the then Tauranga District Council. Then for about 5 or 6 years, and then spent a bit of time as Acting Chief Executive, and then moved on to the Port Company as Company Secretary for a period of time, and then established my own consultancy in 1996, primarily in the planning, resource management and independent chairing arena. As many of you will know, I've had spent about 20 years as independent chair of the Smart Growth Partnership. I resigned that role the day before we took office as commissioners, and also undertaken independent chairing in terms of the Greater Christchurch Partnership and Future Proof in Hamilton. So I'm about to disappear from the Greater Christchurch Partnership also. Obviously in those types of roles, high degree of commitment in terms of the partnership and collaborative approach, and I think that's been reiterated by both my fellow commissioners. So really looking forward to the challenges before us, and I suppose changing from a role of independent chair and where there's been a clear focus in terms of getting planning frameworks and strategies in place, really now to execution and implementation and the associated funding of all of that. So a number of challenges in that space, and certainly looking forward to working with my fellow commissioners and staff on those matters. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So you can see we have a highly skilled team that has been brought together by Minister Mahuta, and the emphasis for us is very clear. I'm just getting the page number for our terms of reference, which is on page 54 of the agenda. So if you want to check up what the Minister's instructions are to us, but it's very much focused on making sure that Tauranga City Council produces a long-term development plan that belongs to its community, that is owned by its community, and that's a task I think you can tell from the comments that we are very focused on. So obviously I didn't call for any apologies because we're all here, and there are none. And we've introduced ourselves, so we don't have anyone for the public forum today? No. We're very keen to make sure that we are open to the public and that we're accessible, so please feel free to register to speak to us through the public forum. We have no late items and no confidential business today. Have we got any change to the order of business? No? And we don't have any minutes to confirm. Do we have any conflicts of interest, any declaration of conflicts of interest? No? No. We have no deputations, presentations or petitions, and we have no recommendations from other committees. So that brings us to the business in front of us today. Item 10, the governance structure. Do we want any comment from staff? Coral.
Morena. My name is Coral here. I'm the Manager of Democracy Services.
Oh,
So I won't go through this report in any detail. I think you'll be very familiar with it. I just want to recognise Cindy Gilman-Bate, who is our corporate solicitor, who has also assisted with putting this report together. So it's had a legal focus on it as well. So this is really an interim structure, and we're obviously looking to make some appointments to the various joint committees and advisory groups, so they can sort of get on with their work. You'll see that there is some groups that we haven't decided on yet, and we'll come back to you with a report on the 8th of March. So hopefully that will be sorted then for you. We have put forward an amended set of standing orders, and I know there's been a couple of questions this morning, so I'm happy to answer those questions around the standing orders now, if that would suit you. And otherwise, I'm happy to answer any other questions.
thank you very much. The standing orders, the only alterations we're really trying to make to them is that we're only 4. So the formal sort of structure where you have a council of 11 and a chair and a mayor, it doesn't really apply. And we would like to be, as I say, we would like to have as much open discussion as possible. So we're looking to remove the time limits on those sort of formal moving of motions and exercising rights of replies, which is 21.2. And we're also altering the time limit for the public forum to try and see if we can get more people in. And we'll have a look at that later on if it's not working. Are there any questions for Coral?
Thank you. Coral, just on page 9, this relates to the City Plan Hearings Committee. The other members, in brackets, yet to be appointed, so will that come back to commissioners in due course with the list of those?
Yes, I caught up with Janine Speedy, who's the City Plan Manager, and she advises me probably around May that you'll get a report coming through to you for the appointment of those commissioners.
Okay, no, thank you. That's all, thanks.
So just to quickly take you through the recommendations, you are asked on the standing orders side to decide whether you want a casting vote or not. So you'll need to, when you move those, to decide whether you want to retain it, remove it, or have it limited. And then with the standing orders around time limits on public speakers, that's under J4, and we could also, I think, add in to make it consistent with deputations, which is Standing Order 16.1, just to make those the same. And then to get round, the issue of time limits for when you're speaking, that is Standing Order 21.2, as you've pointed out, and that you can just, in your recommendations, just say that there are no time limits for moving motions or right of replies or speaking to anything, so that would cover that off. Thank you.
Right, so I called for someone prepared to move that. Stephen, seconder. Shad, any discussion? So I'll put the motion that the council receives the report, governance structure, joint committee appointments and standing orders, discharges the following standing committees: Finance, Audit and Risk Committee, Policy Committee, Project Services and Operations Committee, Urban Form and Transport Development Committee, Regulatory Committee, Chief Executive's Performance Committee, that we confirm the following standing and special committees: and continue with the same terms of reference but with a change in membership as follows. Do I need to read those out? No, thank you. We're confirming the District Licensing Committee without any changes to its terms of reference or membership. We're confirming the joint committees with the same terms of reference, but with a change in the appointment of the Tauranga City Council representatives that are set out in the order paper, and the Tauranga City Council elected members who are appointed to these joint committees are discharged, and we've appointed the following people again as listed. To those, we're appointing the listed people as the Tauranga City Council representatives or members to these advisory groups, external organisations and internal working groups in the stead of the Tauranga City Council elected members who are discharged from these groups and organisations. They're listed there, with some yet to be decided. In respect of the advisory groups, the external organisations and internal working groups where the City Council representatives are yet to be decided, delegates to the Chief Executive and or his sub-delegates, delegates the authority to attend those meetings in the meantime. We confirm and adopt the terms of reference and delegations for the above committees and governance groups, and they're set out in Attachment 1. We confirm the next meeting of the Council will be held on Monday the 8th of March 2021, commencing at 9 a.m. in the Council chamber here. Just note that we've rearranged the furniture a little bit. And we're adopting the current standing orders which are listed in Attachment 2 with the following changes. Casting vote provision is retained. Hope I never have to use that. Option C for motions and amendments, which is Standing Order 22.4 in Appendix 5. We're going to remove references to the Code of Conduct because they relate to elected members. We are going to amend the public forum time set aside as explained at the beginning of each meeting. So the time set aside is 30 minutes, but is at the discretion of the chairperson, and then we're going to amend the time of the speakers to 5 minutes, but again the chairperson can use discretion if there's a complex or a group presenting, and we're also going to apply that to Standing Order 16.1, which is deputations. And then for the terms of the Commission, where the standing orders refer to the Mayor, this will be taken to refer to the Commission Chair, and where it refers to the elected members, this will be taken to refer to the Commissioners. And as stated, we're adding in a revocation of Standing Order 21.2, so we're not putting time limits on our speakers to motions and discussing motions, so that we can encourage as much discussion in open of the council meetings as possible. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? No abstentions. I declare the motion is carried. Thank you. That's the first one. So that brings us to the executive report and our Chief Executive, Marty Grenfell. So do you want to take us through that, Marty? Please.
Thank you very much. I'll defer to the General Managers who will just speak to their various portions of the report. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll kick off. So Christine Jones, General Manager, Strategy and Growth, and I'll start off with page 129 of the agenda. So there are 3 areas that relate to strategy and growth. I only really want to focus on one, but happy to answer questions on any of the items. The plan changes to the Tauranga City Plan. Just wanted to draw the Commissioner's attention to that and the importance of that. So the purposes particularly of Plan Change 26, Housing Choice, and Plan Change 27, Flooding from Intense Rainfall, are to deliver on the urban form directives that have been set in both the Smart Growth Strategy and the Urban Form and Transport plan. So it enables greater density of housing in existing urban areas and is a really critical component of our overall growth strategy. So there is particular focus on greater density in the Te Papa Peninsula, and it gives effect to the provisions in the National Policy Statement of Urban Development that was released late last year, and in some of the other suburban areas, it also allows increased density. And the Plan Change 27 deals with the natural hazards issues in those same areas, so to ensure that we are not creating further flooding, and over time improving the management of increased rainfall management. So happy to answer any questions on any of those items on page 129 and 130.
Any questions? Bill?
Christine, the time frames for the likely hearings for those 26, 27 and 30.
It will be this calendar year. Probably by the time we get to about May, we'll have understood what comes in terms of further submissions, and then we'll be able to give you a timetable as to the complexity of the further submissions and the matters arising. So we're not quite there, and we haven't yet, because the submissions only closed 2 weeks ago, and as you can see there's a large number of them, we haven't yet managed to go through and analyse all of the issues. So we'll report back to the Commission once we understand the depth and nature, and therefore the timeline.
I'm interested in the, you've noted here that some submissions consider that the plan change doesn't go far enough in terms of meeting the National Policy Statement on Urban Development. Can you give us a flavour of to what extent? Is it the height of the buildings? Is it the connection to transport? Yeah, that would be helpful, thank you.
I haven't yet seen the overall summary, but the ones that have come in, some of them are relating predominantly to height and the view that we should go further in terms of the scale across the Te Papa Peninsula. But there are a number of reasons why we've chosen not to do that, and some of the submitters weren't aware of that, and particularly there are sight lines to Mawal that we're in the existing city plan. They come from a strong relationship with Tangata Whenua and work with Tangata Whenua over a number of years that have put those sight lines in. And so when people have looked at the map, they've assumed they've only looked at the lay of the land. They've not thought about it in terms of the vista and cultural view shafts. So those are the sorts of things that we need to work through, and also around the proximity to transport links and where the public transport corridors are going to go, and we want to make sure that we've got the density closer to them and not too far away. So we have to work through each of the submission issues, looking geographically on the land, understanding both the land form, the transport corridors, and other matters such as view shafts before we can conclude whether or not, from a staff technical perspective, there is room for further density than what we have proposed in the initial plan change.
Excellent, thank you.
Just further to that, Christine, in terms of, given totally there's a large number of submissions, what's the nature of engagement with submitters prior to the preparation of the staff reports and going to a hearing?
I don't have my fingertips on that at the moment. We're just summarising all of the initial submissions. Then we will go back to everybody who's submitted, and then they can see what everybody else has submitted, which is just a standard process into the RMA. There are frequent newsletters that we're sending out on all of the plan changes to people who have registered an interest or who have engaged with us in any way. Once we understand and have analysed the submissions, then we will create our ongoing, next stage of our communication engagement plan. So clearly we've got all our statutory requirements. There are a couple of themes starting to come through already, in that a number of the submissions are out of scope or relate to other matters, and we need to work out how we're going to engage with the people who've raised those issues and how we can communicate clearly to them what sits within the RMA and why something is within scope. And if it's something without scope, what is the avenue for those matters to be responded to and addressed, so that we just don't effectively park them and say it's not this process, but we don't give them any pathway or explain how those matters are going to be addressed. So we're just working through at the moment which ones are in scope and which are out of scope, and then there'll be a communications plan developed for each of those streams.
Supplementary. Certainly interested in what some of that process looks like beyond the statutory process. because at the end of the day, and having spent years as a hearings commissioner, if a number of the key issues can be resolved prior to the hearing, because the hearing is a pretty difficult space in which to get in and work through, particularly some of the complex issues, which I suspect, and particularly, well, probably, certainly, I don't know so much about the earthworks, but certainly in 26 and 27.
In respect particularly around the flood one, that has been an area of concern for members of the public, and we have been holding information sessions, drop-in sessions, and we've had one-to-one bookable sessions with a large number of those. What we've found with those is people have come in with a range of concerns, and we have been able to address and respond to many of those concerns. Unfortunately, some of the information that has been publicly circulated by other parties is factually incorrect, and so that has raised, people have got quite worried about that and the implications for them. But when we've started to work through some of the detail with these people, some of them have been comfortable with the outcome and have been of a view that they haven't needed to submit or haven't needed to raise their concerns any further. So what we need to do, for those who have come forward and we've been able to engage with, that's been a really helpful process. Not everyone who submitted did that, and so we need to now work through how we're going to engage with those who still do have concerns, as you say. So we've dealt with part of it, but not all of it yet.
Morena tātou. So the next section is about the infrastructure component, and I've tried to cover and give you an update of the significant projects that are on the go at the moment, moving fast, and but where there are no formal decisions required for the next wee while. So just looking to update you on those. I wanted to call out particularly on the waters reform, the first section there. I finish off with talking about preparing submissions for the water services bill, so you will consider that later on in the meeting, for which we're seeking your endorsement for the submission on that. And then the rest of it are project updates, so if I can take that as read and maybe respond to any questions.
Thank you. I have one question on the three waters on your, actually it's paragraph 18, where you talk about the multi-regional initiative with the 10 other councils. So it states here the finding of this initiative will be presented to the chief executives of the regional councils in early February. Is that going to come to the Commission as well?
Yes, it will. So, so just in terms of the information gathering, that has been completed, and we've got a good look at what our business looks like in terms of the water services provision, in terms of numbers, revenue, debt, all those sorts of things. So, but that is right. As it starts to shape up, and I know there is a meeting scheduled with DIA for the first week of March, which is next week, but also Solgem, which is the local government organisation that is facilitating the regional component of this with these 10, is also looking to meet next week to look at what the future of that will look like.
But you didn't answer my question. Was when will the results of that come to the Commission? When do we expect to see the results of that stock take, if you like?
So I think it's as a best guess, there will be a proposal within the next 2 months.
Nick, I take you to paragraph 28 on page 132 of the agenda, where you discuss the number 1 road pipeline and then the significant disruption, and that the engagement team is working on ways to mitigate that disruption. So when will the engagement team actually have a handle on that or what mitigation is required, because my concern I have is the reputational risk to Tauranga City Council in terms of this project and the disruption in that part of the community, which in effect was in Western Bay. So there's been quite a bit of media coverage around it, so I'm just interested in terms of when that engagement team has actually worked through the mitigation of that disruption, and what other measures in your view may be required to make sure that the reputation of TCC in terms of this project is enhanced, improved or whatever.
Yeah, so like many of our projects, this has been consulted with the affected stakeholders for a long time. We started this looking at options about a year and a half ago, together with Western Bay, who is the asset owner of Number 1 Road. So we are putting a pipe in the ground on someone else's road effectively. We've looked at a number of options, and we're at a point now where, on balance, we have decided that this is the best option. The drilling rig is actually establishing on site today, so the mitigation at this point is about informing the residents to keep them up to speed with the latest information where the project is at. So the decision is made. The disruption will be that we apply the detour that was finalised a couple of weeks ago. We discussed it in chambers with Western Bay. They had, as this got a profile in the media, the Western Bay Council showed some interest in it as well, and had us come along and present to them, and just to see if there were any other options, but this is the best on balance. So to answer your question, the mitigation at the moment is about informing the residents on a regular basis about how it progresses, how we're going to time, etc.
Do I take it, though, given we're that part of the sub-region with kiwi fruit season and those types of things, that there is that engagement, obviously, with pack houses, cool stores on a regular basis?
Very much part of the stakeholder engagement, yes.
I'm really interested as a commissioner and from an infrastructure perspective about our ability as an organisation to make sure that we really do effective planning for transportation and urban development. And I'm interested in as an example, I'll use the Totara Street work stream on how we design the cycleway and shared use pathway through that corridor. And I drove that in the weekend. It wasn't congested like it normally is, and it was a high traffic lane, but I'm just wondering about the compatibility of cycle lanes and heavy transport in that corridor, and are we really, when we're looking at these projects, are we really thinking about them from a user perspective? Because you know, from a cyclist point of view, heavy transport in that corridor is going to be a safety risk as well as a undesirable place to be. From a truck driver's point of view, the last thing you really want to do is try and interface with cyclists. And, you know, I guess just by way of introduction, I'm really keen to understand when we do these projects that we do it in a sensible way that meets the needs of the people that we're serving in the first place. So I'll be keen when we see the transportation projects come through, the extent to which we've done that in a concrete way, in a real customer-focused way, so that it works. Because there's often a pressure to deliver cycle lanes, walkways, multimodal corridors, and what we tend to do is try to do that all in one place, and they don't fit that well together. So if we can provide the amenity, whilst also not just from a technical point of view, if we can provide the amenity that actually meets customers' needs, I think that's mission critical. So it's just by way of observation rather than a question. But very happy to hear you. your thinking on that, Nick.
Yeah, so I take on board all of those points and completely agree with the points made as well. And what I should maybe point out is the temporary function of this particular project. That it's, you know, we have a parallel initiative where we look at Hewlett, Hull, Totara from a network perspective to service the port and to service commuter, to service tourists that wants to go to the beach, or when we get cruise ships back in to leave the beach, industries and of course the businesses along Totara. But that's part of the TSP business case, to look at the bigger network impacts for the future. So we know that this project, from a benefit cost ratio perspective, returns the cost in about 5 or 6 years, and we expect the construction of Totara, Hull, Hewlett to be beyond that. So it is a temporary solution. It's not ideal, but it's on balance it's a solution that provides a safer cycling facility in the meantime.
If I can take you to your discussion on Cameron Road, Nick, and there's a couple of questions. And I note under paragraph 40 there's the project scope conditions. And I'll come back to those in a moment, but in terms of underneath that, you discuss notable trade-offs being considered to meet the project scope conditions. I'm just interested, who will decide on those trade-offs? Is that commissioners, or is that something that staff will consider?
So we will put together a proposal which will include feedback from stakeholders in the community, and I talk about here also how we are going to engage with a wider community in the next couple of months as we finalise the design. That will then be taken to you for a final decision.
Okay. So my second question, and this is referencing again the discussion, in particular paragraph 47. So are those scope limitations or restrictions likely to compromise the achievement of, for want of a better word, good outcomes in terms of that Cameron Road redevelopment? And if they do, is there the opportunity for those to be reviewed, or has that opportunity passed?
I don't think that opportunity has passed, but if we were to reconsider any of them, the timeline by which we could deliver it would compromise the deadlines we have with our funding partner. So also, not only the project scopes and objectives would be compromised, but we would compromise the timing and cost deliverables. So there are some really significant constraints in the corridor, and like most transportation projects, there are compromises. So when we present it to you, we will present the compromises that we're making with the pros and cons, and make the decision knowing all of those details.
What's your likely time frame for that to come to the commissioners?
So we're finalising the design now. We're looking at some of the intersection treatments. If there's anything we can do, we have particular issues with the widths down towards the 17th Ave end, as you may know. We're looking at options how we can optimise what we've already got there, or if we could do something different. But again, that if we were to do anything different outside of this scope, we may have to put those last two, 16th, 17th Ave, into the second phase of the Cameron Road project if we were to do anything significantly changed in there, and that wouldn't be desirable either. So again, it's on balance, we're looking at putting it through to you including up until the 17th Ave, with the best we can do by, that'll be late March.
Okay. No, thank you.
Considering a construction start during the month of April. So it's very, very tight timelines to meet the CIP funding requirements.
Can I just follow up on that? Do you want to know what those restrictions are? Have been? What those early scope limitations?
Yes, that would be helpful. I don't necessarily need to know them now.
No.
Yes, but at later time,
If you could
offline.
give us an explanation of what those scope limitations are, that would be helpful.
Yep.
Thank you.
That's no trouble at all. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. I've just got a couple of questions, just in terms of Cameron Road and the design development, and just thinking about, tangata whenua participation and their involvement. Understand that, or would assume that from a tangata whenua point of view, some of the principles that they've developed from a urban design perspective have been integrated through, particularly for this corridor.
Yes, they have, and we do have some material on that that I can provide as well, outside of what's in here. Thanks, Chad.
Sorry, just a follow-up question. In terms of the technical experts, was there a kind of a cultural expert or to provide those perspectives in terms of the project team collaborating with project partners and technical experts? Was there a cultural expert?
In that work with tangata whenua, I would assume that is the case, but how those technical experts were appointed, I haven't got that detail with me, but that's also something that I can follow up and update you on. Thank you.
Thanks, that would be helpful. I just want to ask you about, in paragraph 53, the comment that a common theory querying why the project is being undertaken highlights a sort of a lack of understanding of the council's wider vision, as you state, and it's currently being reviewed and addressed. And is that something you're going to come and talk to us about? Because that's quite an important thing, that people understand why all this is going to happen, which is going to be quite disruptive anyway. And you do want good communication, you do want a good involvement from the community. So how far along are you, and are you going to bring that and talk to us about that? And is there some way we can help with that?
Yes, absolutely. So the best way probably to help with that is the city vision and what the long-term plan is, and what we want the city and particularly Cameron Road to look like from a transportation, public transport, amenity perspective, etc. The communication component now is struggling with that bigger picture, and I think that is because of the vision component, but it also comes down to the TSP product, and I think we need to do some better work around how we communicate the TSP, which is the pipeline and the long-term plan of projects, and the why that is. So how do each of those projects in the TSP, that's the transport system plan, contribute towards that bigger picture? And what we've heard from the community, the why around doing this section first, when actually you could argue that the biggest problem at the moment is from 17th Ave through to Barks Corner and Greerton in particular. So why are we not dealing with that first? But it's one of these chicken and egg ones where, well, partly we had a very strong business case for the CIP funding to hit this first, but also it's all linked together. So just in terms of getting people onto public transport, for instance, and get the behavioural changes that we need, we can't just first deal with 17th Ave to Barks Corner, because the journeys start in a different location. So and we're also looking to achieve the amenity benefits, those sort of things that aren't necessarily about moving people as well, to give, I guess, the city of snapshot what the future could look like.
Thank you. I think the conversation around mode shift is something that major cities, I think, have been able to deal with and grapple with quicker than Tauranga. And I think we learnt a very good lesson with Monganui Road, for example, which was a wide corridor. I think initially it may well have been 2 lanes each way, more recently reduced to less than that. But the introduction of bus lanes and cycleways from what was a very wide thoroughfare racetrack to what now feels like an urban residential road. There were a lot of naysayers and we came under a lot of criticism as that work was being developed, but the feedback that we've had now on completion of that section has been fantastic. And so I think what we're seeing is some projects happen in the absence of a clear understanding and acceptance of mode shift, but once the projects are complete, I think our community will start to embrace. But there is a story to be told at that highest level.
Sorry, just picking up on those points. I would assume that, from a community's point of view, in terms of their expectations for this corridor, that a lot of that work would have come through the Te Papa Spatial Plan from a transport perspective to help inform this piece of work.
Yeah. Yes, you're right about that. They're very much linked. So there's several components to this. There's the project per se, how that fits into the Te Papa Spatial Plan and the bigger picture, the amenity, the transport component, and also the third leg is the TSP.
Te Mare koutou. This is a summary of some of the operational activity of the Community Services Group, and that starts on page 137. Before questions, I thought I'd just highlight a couple of successes and highlights and challenges. Bullet point 72 and 73, the uncertainty of COVID still providing some challenges for Bay Court, with bookings moving and performances cancelling and having to reshape the theatre for different size audiences. But one of the unintended upsides is that we are getting a lot more local product touring the country, so that's proved really positive. Paragraph 75, again COVID related, the International Cricket Women's World Cup moved from 2021 to 2022, and the downside / upside of that was we lost a semi-final match, but we actually picked up an extra match and are now hosting the first match of the whole tournament. So an estimated 1.2 billion sets of eyeballs on Tauranga Moana at the start of that tournament. So we feel like that's actually a bit of a win as opposed to a loss. Paragraph 90 had some very, very positive feedback about our Trail Rider project. So we invested in a piece of equipment that allowed people with disability and accessibility issues to get to the top of Moau, and it involves 4 family members carrying them up on a wheeled apparatus, and it's available to book from the holiday park at the mountain. It's proved incredibly popular, and some really lovely feedback from the community with photos of elderly family members that haven't been able to go up the mount for 10, 20 years and just absolutely loving that opportunity. So that's positive. Paragraph 104, our librarians are getting excited because our library bus is nearly done. So the replacement for that is about a month away. That's exciting for our community as well. And just finally, 108, the Wharf Street Streetscape upgrade project is fundamentally done. There's a little bit of tidying up to do just with some cultural elements. There's some etching to go on the concrete that'll tell the story of Wharf Street, and we need to finish the cultural elements that are on the poles, and then we'll officially have a blessing to wrap that project up. But so far so good. It will come in under budget, and we're looking forward to finishing that off and getting it done. Happy to answer any questions.
So, first one's a comment. In terms of 98, which relates to the recruitment process for the Art Gallery Trust, Gareth, I don't have any particular issue at all in terms of the suggestion there, in terms of staff acting as council representatives on the panel. Just when it comes to us as commissioners, just making sure that we do have a good snapshot of the applicants that are being recommended, and clarity in terms of the reasons for the recommendation for appointment.
Absolutely, we'll definitely prepare that information, and we do a matrix of skills that we're looking for and how the people that we're proposing fit those skills that we're looking for. So,
And in terms of paragraph 109 related to the Elizabeth Streetscape upgrade, I presume, and it may have been in our previous briefing papers, that that project has been approved by the previous council and funded, etc. And there's no involvement from us as commissioners apart from overseeing, if required, in terms of the implementation of that.
yeah, absolutely correct. That has been approved. It is 100% funded. We will bring regular operational updates back to you just so you're across how that project's progressing. But at this point in time, going well.
And just a bouquet in terms of the Wharf Street redevelopment. I think that's come together very well.
Thank you. We'll pass that on.
I'll echo that. I ate there last night. It's magnificent. It's fantastic.
Thanks, Gareth. I've just got one question. It's in regard to the Coolum Park upgrade. I suppose because I live down on Coolum Avenue, and did attend one of the public. And I did attend one of the community events, which was well attended, and just commend council on their efforts to engage with the community. But I suppose just wanted to understand, kind of in terms of the feedback that council has received, what are the kind of next steps in terms of that particular project?
I'm probably going to go and need to get an update from the project team, but we did go on a bit of a journey to get to where we got to in terms of having an agreed position with our community and our elected members in terms of the final direction for the design. I feel pretty confident that we've landed in a good place now. We've been able to take on board a lot of the community feedback. Yeah, I'm probably best not to speculate. I'll just go to the project team and get an update, and we can provide that for you offline in terms of the next steps for the project over the coming months. I could guess, but I probably get it wrong.
Thank you. Just, pardon me, picking up on your comment about Trail Rider. Well done on that. I walked up and around the mount yesterday, and I tell you what surprised me. I was very slow, but I tell you what surprised me the most is the number of people with a good few more years than me walking up that mount, how quick they were able to do that. And it just underlined to me the tremendous asset that is to the city, and it's great to see the work of the council to improve and continue to enable opportunities for everyone to enjoy that that tremendous asset. So, well done.
Thank you. We'll definitely pass it on.
Morena tātou, and welcome to our commissioners. I represent the People and Engagement Group, starting on page 146. Like Gareth, we've chosen to update you on some operational matters over the last quarter, so I'll take most of them as read. However, I would like to highlight a couple of them. The first one being item number 128. We were one of 4 councils selected to be audited by the Ombudsman Office, and the Chief Ombudsman published that report in February this year. Pleasingly, there was some good feedback for us in that report. There were no formal recommendations made, but a number of suggestions that we could take forward to improve our transparency with the community, and many of those opportunities for improvement are already well underway by the team. So I just wanted to acknowledge the effort and work they put into that audit and the results of it. And secondly, just for the public perhaps listening or here today, during Rates Month, this month being no exception, our customer service team station themselves out at our libraries and can provide a service, including a mobile payment service for any of our community out in our libraries. So I just wanted to let everyone know that you don't have to come into the Willow Street office. There's opportunities elsewhere as well. And with the other topics, I'm happy to take questions.
Can I start by congratulating the team on the Ombudsman's report? I know he's a hard taskmaster. I've dealt with him myself. So well done, and it's good that there were no formal recommendations. And I presume you will bring us an update on the changes that you're making in accordance with his suggestions.
Happy to do so.
So really a clarification in terms of the communications and engagement. So there's the broader operation, but when there is a project sign-off and into implementation, I take it that the comms and engagement responsibility then lies with the particular department or area that has the accountability for that, or is there a crossover between the wider responsibilities and the more focused project responsibilities?
That's a very topical question right now, as the team are undergoing quite a change to the way that we deliver communications and engagement to better connect with our community. In principle, as you described it, is how it should work. So the team act as an advisory function that will help teams and projects set their communications and engagement plans, then give them sound advice about how they might reach their stakeholders and what mechanisms or channels they may use. But the ultimate ownership of that plan rests with the project owner or the business unit owner.
Okay, thank you. And certainly be interested as that work develops. As you know, we have a very specific task from the Minister around all of that engagement. So as commissioners, and certainly for myself, it's a key area in terms of considering in due course.
And that's a nice segue into suggesting that we would also love your own help in the new way of working with our community relations structure, and that will involve better connections with you as our conduit to the community.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Barbara Dempsey and I'm the General Manager for Regulatory and Compliance. In the Regulatory and Compliance group we have 3 divisions, and what you have in front of you is commentary on what's front of mind for us as a group and as those 3 divisions. You will note a message in the building and environmental planning commentary in particular. The challenge for us, our workload is certainly not decreasing in either of those groups, but particularly in building, the challenge to recruit suitably qualified people to make the improvements and to deliver the level of service to our community that we aspire to do. So that's just really an ongoing commentary. We are making steps, particularly in planning, but we still have an awful lot of vacancies in the building team. In the regulation team, just a couple of things that I'd like to call out. Animal Services have done an awful lot of work over the years to reduce the acts of aggression. So that's a really pleasing trend that you see on page 150. And just some commentary around environmental health and licensing. The one aspect of COVID that did affect our group in particular, because most of the work, apart from inspections, we could do working from home, but when it comes to food plans and inspections of the food premises throughout the city, the not being able to undertake those inspections through COVID has certainly put us back. We are slowly catching up and hoping to have caught up by the end of the financial year. So that's some key issues from us. We'll see some key commentary from us. I'm happy to take questions.
How many vacancies are remaining in your environmental planning, and how confident are you, and what are the difficulties that you're finding in attracting people? Because everyone wants to live in Tauranga.
It's a combination of issues, really. Environmental planning is, from a qualification perspective, is easier. From the building control officers, there's quite a qualification you need. You need to have a diploma, and then you need to go through competencies. So recruiting those people, particularly in building, is difficult. Yes, everybody wants to live in Tauranga, but it is a little bit expensive, and we do find it is hard to attract people here. And of course, we're competing with all of the private businesses in Tauranga as well. So our planners are a little bit easier. We haven't got as, I think we've got a vacancy of about 4 at the moment, but we're 15% short of our total numbers required in the building team, which is 12 vacancies, I think. We do use consultants, and so that helps with processing the applications. It doesn't help with the inspections, obviously, but then obviously it's a lot more expensive as well, so we need to be looking at our recruitment processes. We're going to try some innovative ways of encouraging people to come and work for us, but so it's a journey. We just have to keep persevering.
Thanks, Barbara. I just have a question, just in terms of the recruitment. Is this a Tauranga City issue, or is it a broader issue across the country in terms of filling these particular roles and positions?
Most definitely a broader issue. There wouldn't be too many BCAs that don't have at least one vacancies throughout the whole of New Zealand.
Barbara, in terms of the building area, is that totally self-funding, or is there an element of public good and rate input into that?
It's not totally self-funding. I think the revenue and financing policy looks for about 80% funding of the total cost. What we can charge, what's reasonable to charge, we charge. So processing inspections is 100% charged to the beneficiary. The component of the activity that's not 100% funded is the general inquiries, the enforcement, and the following up with people.
Okay. And just certainly in terms of your paragraph 138, where you talk about the solutions and progress, just be interested in due course where you get to with some of those. Most interesting in terms of what you've outlined there, but yeah, certainly be interested in what you end up implementing in due course.
Well, thank you for that, and we'll be really keen to show you, especially some of that, the electronic or the Skype type inspections. That's quite interesting, so I'd be very happy to follow up with you on that.
Thank you.
Good morning and welcome to the Commissioners. Corporate Services, just to firstly note that 2 of the big areas of the support services, being finance and legal and risk, are actually reported separately, so a lot more detail will come in terms of those areas. So just to cover the other major support area before I talk about some of the operational areas is around digital. And you can see two elements have been highlighted in the report around life cycle, which is really looking after what we've got. So that's just the ongoing upgrades, which there's quite a lot of work going on at the moment in terms of that piece of work. And security, where we have had some external reporting done last year and developing a program to actually lift our security maturity over the future. So we're moving to level 1, so which is still relatively towards the bottom, but in local government it's actually quite strong. So that's happening as we speak. In terms of moving on to the more operational areas, airport is going very well at the moment despite all of the implications of COVID. I think it's one of the few airports that's close to 100% of schedule at the moment, and load factors are relatively strong at present. Another success is the holiday park. The joys of a lot of domestic tourism is that the holiday park has produced its best result ever. So some really good income coming through there, and Marine Precinct continues to to grow. It's bringing in the largest catamaran in the world, I think it is, and some of the lifts down there are getting up quite a lot of profile now, so some really good work being done down at the precinct. And I'll take any questions.
On the procurement, what's the objective of that exercise? And given the complexities of the market and the pressure in the market at this time, how do we stand to compete?
It's a good question, and there's really two parts to the answer. The first procurement policy review is very much what I would describe as more of a tidy up of policy, looking at limits. It still is bringing in things like local and sustainability practices, but there is a bigger piece of work that's being developed through the capital project delivery, which will be much more strategic in terms of its procurement work. So that will be the second phase of that work that occurs later this year, which really looks at how we continue to grow capacity, how we work with the markets better, and how we develop better pipelines of work. So that's to come later this year.
And this may be a question to Nick as much as you, Paul, but I'm just interested in the level of response to the tenders that we are putting to market. Are we getting good depth of competitive response or not?
Yes, we are at the moment, but it is getting tighter. We are noticing a very heated sector, and that's why we think it's really important, to Paul's point, to look at the strategic view of procurement. And we talked previously about, as we put the long-term plan together, simultaneously put a long-term procurement plan together so that we become an attractive partner, and that this sector, design and delivery sector, know what's in the pipeline for us and can organise themselves for a longer game. Historically, infrastructure is very much up and down, and it's really hard for them to build capability and capacity if then we, put tighten the reins and don't put as much to market. So we think that by putting this long-term procurement plan together, we'll be in a much better position to work with the market in a positive way.
Thank you. I really like the sound of that, because if you aren't an attractive client, there is plenty out there looking for bids, and we've got to be as competitive as any, and hopefully among the best.
Paul, in terms of your Power 179, you talk about the regional funding options work, which I do know a bit about, but that umbilical cord got cut 2 or 3 weeks ago. So, and you talk about the report going to CEs later in this month, or must be this week or something, and then being presented to the Smart Growth Leadership Group. Is that meant to be happening in the March meeting, or I just want to get a bit of a handle on the time frame for that?
There has been some changes around time frame, so we're just actually going through, and we've got a meeting with the consultants on that tomorrow just to confirm what that time frame looks like, and we'll come back and reconfirm what that timing will
Because obviously that word funding, that we're avidly interested in terms of all of that.
As am I.
Thank you.
No, thank you. I should have welcomed you. So welcome to Commissioners. We're very pleased to have you with us and look forward to working with you until the next election, whenever that may be.
Right, so is someone prepared to move that we receive the executive report, Bill? Seconder? Okay, Stephen. Any discussion? I'll put the motion that we receive that executive report. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Oh, there's no abstentions. I don't have to keep saying that all the time. Everyone votes to that. Right. So item 10.3 is our long-term plan timeline. And I think Christine's going to talk to that. Thank you, Christine.
Yes, so under the legislation of the Local Government Act, the long-term plan is required to be adopted by the 30th of June. Given the timing of the appointment of the commissioners, we think that that's a virtually impossible task to achieve, just because it needs to have external audit and the timelines are too tight. So draw your attention to paragraph 24. What we're suggesting is that it would be achievable to move the timeline to the end of July. We're not suggesting that we go beyond that, because there are rate implications in terms of our rates collection and cash, which, if you want further detail, Paul can speak to that matter. And the other paragraph would like to draw your attention to is paragraph 27. We're noting that even though it is extending beyond the statutory deadline, it is still relatively tight. There's a lot of work for the commissioners to do in a relatively short period of time. And we're just noting that there is still the opportunity at a future point, if the commissioners wish to make amendments to the LTP, and that those amendments would be subject to public consultation. So that's a mechanism that's in the Local Government Act. You can make an amendment to your LTP at any point in time, and so you could pick that up at any time through your term. The other point I'd note is that if you do make a resolution to extend beyond the statutory deadline, we'd suggest that you write to the Minister to formally advise, so that there is real transparency about your decision and that the breach is well communicated.
Yes, thank you for that. I think the major concern, I don't think any of us are afraid of the hard work, but I think the major concern is that there's a good opportunity for the community to take part, and I think we will probably come back and discuss that option in paragraph 27. So it might be that because it is, even if we go with option 2 and extend it out a month, the issues that the community raise, we may well be able to deal with the immediate and then come back and have a better conversation about the long-term planning with the community, I think is sort of where we're getting to in our heads, as a way of making sure that it is the community's long-term plan. Any questions from anyone else?
So, just so I'm clear, Christine, an LTP amendment can then occur any time during the next financial year? There are no particular time limitation on that?
No, the only thing is you can't effectively run it in parallel with an existing one, so you must complete this process that you're undertaking and adopt the LTP for the period 2021 to 2031. Once that's adopted, any point in time after that, you can start another LTP amendment process. So normally, if it was partially through a year, you would only be dealing with, say, an issue that came up that you didn't have the power to do without public consultation through an LTP amendment, and then you might choose to do an LTP amendment in conjunction with an annual plan. But clearly there's different circumstances, but that would sort of normally be what would happen.
But the approved LTP, so that stays there. So it's just discrete amendments, for want of a better,
so
in
you
terms
can
of
either
that original plan. You
can either do a discrete amendment, or you amend the entire plan. So you could maybe choose a topic. So we did an amendment to the LTP when we moved the timing of the library. It is a new LTP, but you really only the substantive change was one matter, and all the rest pretty much stayed intact. Or you could basically be making a large number of substantive changes across the entire plan, but both of those are still considered to be LTP amendments, but your intent is different, I suppose. Paul may wish to add something.
Yeah, that's right, just for clarity. So we do produce an entirely new plan, but the focus, obviously, with community consultation is on what's being amended. And audit do look at the whole plan again. So.
And our drop dead date is 16 March in terms of then going to audit.
Yeah, so 16th March then allows around 10 days for staff to actually produce all of the written documentation and so forth to finalise, to go to audit at the end of March.
Excuse me, Anne, could you put your microphone on to the...
Sorry, thank you. So the recommendations that the council receives the report, endorses option 2 to extend the time frame to allow for the late adoption of the 2021-2031 long-term plan in the week beginning the 26th of July, and would add to that that we write and inform the Minister of Local Government of our decision. So I'm prepared to move that. You happy to second that, Bill? Any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. The motion is carried. So that brings us then to item 10.4. And we have Ariel coming.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Ariel King and I'm the team leader for policy. And you know Carlo. We just wanted to take you through a little bit of a history in terms of where we've got to with this proposed new policy. We currently have an external representatives remuneration policy which did cover what we're proposing is included in the new Tangata Whenua policy. The current policy was initially adopted in 2009, but the meeting fees have been were set much earlier than that. So essentially, it was identified that those fees were no longer appropriate for what was being undertaken, and we also recommended a split between the two policies. We discussed this with Te Rangipu in July 2020 and November 2020 as well, and they were broadly supportive of what we were proposing. We then took an issues and options paper to the December Policy Committee, and the draft policy in front of you reflects the recommendations at that meeting. I'm happy to take any questions if there is any.
Thank you for that. Can I just get it clear that the remuneration was set in 2009 again, but carried through. So the actual rates that the tangata whenua were being paid is older than 2009. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's right.
Thank you. Because that 2009 in itself is a long time ago.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You noted broadly supportive, or Te Rangipu were broadly supportive. Were there any matters that are sort of outstanding or of concern as part of that engagement?
Yeah, probably. Sorry, hopefully you can hear that. Kia ora anō, good to see everybody. In the lead up to this, Rangipu have been advocating for a long time to have the fees reviewed. Certainly, whether where it landed on absolutely reflects the amount of work that they do go through in the background. Was a bit of debate, but they certainly did appreciate that we went to an independent source to have it independently evaluated, and do appreciate that there's some recognition that in their roles they need to canvass their relevant communities, whether it be marae, hapu or iwi. They need to be able to bring that forward to the table, have those discussions, and often have to go back and also have extra steps that they go through in between the different discussions. So I think in terms of supporting what's put forward, absolutely support that as a step in the right direction. And for example, more so looked for things like more regular review, perhaps then sort of having the big gap. I think it was 2004 the fees were actually set.
Thanks, Carlo. Ariel. I just have one question, and it's in in reference to the review, I assume they kind of benchmarked it against other councils or other organisations that remunerate tangata whenua?
The review was undertaken by Strategic Pay and has used the State Services Commission cabinet fees framework to set the rate. But there is also some similarities between what we pay here and, for example, Western Bay Plenty District Council.
Okay, so was someone prepared to move that motion? Shed? Bill, second. Thank you. Any discussion? Any further discussion? So the recommendation is that the council receive the report, adopts the tangata whenua remuneration policy, rescinds the parts of the external representatives remuneration policy that relates to tangata whenua remuneration and the tangata whenua collective, and delegates authority to staff to make minor editorial changes to the policy for the purposes of correction or clarification. I'll put that. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Motion's carried. Thank you. Oh, 10.5, traffic and parking bylaws. We have. Aha, Brendan.
So just in broad terms, this is an update of seeking bylaw changes or looking in bylaw changes to enable enforcement of changes that have been made to the network. They're predominantly safety related, either from when we hear from the public about issues on the network, or something that we ourselves or our safety engineers find on the network where we need to improve for safety reasons. Generally that applies today, I think, other than the shared pedestrian path, the cycle path on Chota Street, and the Wharf Street bylaw to remove traffic altogether, which used to be one way. So taking us read, or if there are any questions, we've got Brendan Bisley here, Director of Transport, to answer those. Thank you.
Good morning. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. And then finally, that brings us to 10.6, Water Services Bill, and the submission on our behalf. Who's going to talk to that? Do you? Nick?
I can talk to that. So the our submission is generally aligned with the Water Services Bill. It's the bill itself is about safe drinking water for all, particularly it was kicked off with the about 3 years ago in Hawke's Bay, where there were particular issues as we know of, and I think it's been highlighted over the last couple of weeks as well with Waikouiti and Karetane north of Dunedin having issues with their water quality. So this bill introduces a regulatory function around water quality. We support it in general. We do have some concerns around capability and capacity to meet those demands, both from a cost perspective, but also whether those skills are available. The other component we comment on specifically in our submission is that we think that the bill is weak with regards to stormwater and wastewater. It is an advisory function only from the organisation Tamara Arawai that is recommended, but we think that actually long term it needs to be stronger than that. So the bill at the moment has got a strong regulatory function on the water quality component, but we would like for it to be looked at from a system perspective. So how does stormwater and wastewater affect that, and how could that be regulated simultaneously? That's the long and short of our submission. We do support also the Solgem submission and Water New Zealand submission, so we were aligned with those two as well. It closes on the 3rd of March, and we would like Commissioner's endorsement to give our submission better weighting. Thank you.
So thank you for that. I guess that's the first step, isn't it? The overall regulation of drinking water alone is the first step, and I think I'm just trying to remember some of the first reading speeches. I think the indication was that this is the start, because we talk about the three waters. So you're right to point out that it does need to be stronger in stormwater and wastewater, and that's good to see. The question I wanted to ask you, look, I don't know much about it, but you might be able to enlighten me. So this backflow issue, is that the one that where hairdressers who are using bleachers and things going into the water have to have a special something put into their basins, and then that has to be inspected on a regular basis? Is that what you're talking about, or is it something much bigger than that?
Well, there's a bigger component of that I know of. I wasn't actually aware of the hairdressers one, so that. But it is, that could well be right. But just in terms of backflow on the quality of water is obviously, it's a big issue, and it needs to be regulated. I wasn't aware of the hairdresser one, but I'm not sure if Barbara can help me on that in terms of the regulation.
Other than to say the Commissioner is dead right, that through the Building Act there is a requirement for buildings like hairdressers, cafes, to have backflow or grease traps.
So my only question was that it is quite a considerable expense. It has to be inspected every year, and they don't always turn up to inspect. And if you prioritising, you haven't got enough inspectors and you're prioritising your inspections, then often you end up paying for something that doesn't necessarily happen. But that's an offline thing we can talk about.
First one's a clarification. Nick, just in terms of the recommendations, and I'm on page 196, so you're requesting that we approve the submission and then and subject to any changes noted today, and then or approved by the Chief Executive. What was the intent there? Because I presume once we approve it, we approve it. Is that more any tweaking, so whatever we decide, if we amended anything, the Chief Executive runs his eye over that?
Yes. I was just going to say, you'll see this come up commonly when we do a lot of reports and so forth, but it's really around just grammatical and minor things, and that's all it is, and that will come back to you if there's anything more significant than that.
No, thank you for that. And
sorry, can I just chip in, because the previous adoption had it was quite specific that it was to make minor editorial changes for the purposes of correction and clarification, so that we could make that standard, and then we all understand what we're meaning. So we might slip that in, the wording in there, just so that we get that standardisation across it. Yeah.
Has there been any engagement with our partners? And the commissioners have talked about partners from the day one we were appointed in terms of Western Bay and the region, in terms of the preparation of this submission.
Yeah, so that engagement is generally through Solgem, so not only our immediate neighbours, but the broader water supply sector, local government across the country.
If I could just make a comment, I think going forward, I think given where the commissioners are in terms of engagement and the commitment in terms of partnership, having that engagement with Western Bay and the region, and obviously as appropriate tangata whenua, is going to be quite key. So I just make that as an observation in terms of future submissions such as this. I think it's just helpful in terms of clearly understanding, A, the perspective of others, but at the end of the day, the more that come together and have that common view, the chances of success are a wee bit greater.
Yeah, point taken, and we've had discussion with Western Bay what this means for our joint services contract. So we're in the final throes of awarding a maintenance and operations contract for the water space, which is in collaboration with Western Bay. So what we have done is not only look at the water services bill and the regulatory component of it, but also what does it mean from a structural organisational point of view to meet the demands of it and that M&O contract.
And finally, I'd just like to acknowledge that previous work that you heard TCC and Western Bay have done in that water space, because some of that's been going on for some time.
So is someone prepared to move that? Bill? With that, yes. Yes. So I suggest that we just replace B2 with delegate authority to the Chief Executive Staff to make minor editorial changes for the purposes of correction or clarification. That's just some standard wording. Okay, you happy to move that? Shad, you happy to second that? All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Discussion of late items. We didn't have any. We don't have a public excluded session. So that brings us to the end of this first meeting of the Council. Thank you very much, everybody. I declare the meeting closed.
Thank you very much.